Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second in our webinar Successful Mind series. Thanks for joining us this morning. I hope you all weathered the storm over the week okay and everybody's safe and warm. Today I'm broadcasting to you from the Quest for Success Training and Coaching Centre here near Rochdale in Greater Manchester. And today, in about an hour and a half's time, we're going to begin day 3 of our intensive NLP Master Coach Practitioner Certification Programme. So it's a very exciting day for everyone here at Quest for Success. I hope you'll be able to join us sometime in a face-to-face training because we'd really love to meet you in person. So today's webinar is going to be all about one of the fundamental bases of successful minds that we talked about in the last webinar. And the first of those fundamentals for creating a successful mind and creating your future success was all about knowing what you want. So today's webinar, we're going to talk about how do you know what you want and how do you go about getting it. So to do this, we can look at our goals. We can look at what it is that we want to achieve. What do we want to do in our lives? What do we want to achieve for ourselves, for our families? What do we want to do? And so we can have a look at different areas of our lives because it really makes sense that when we're thinking about what we want for our future, that we look at our lives as a series of different sections. So, for example, you may want to make changes to your career. You might want to make changes to your family life. You might want to build or heal relationships, or maybe forge new relationships, or even stop relationships that you feel are not good for you. You might want to develop yourself, personal growth and development. So you might have goals in that area. You might also have goals around your health and fitness, very important area of your life. And also around the more spiritual part of your life. Or indeed, you could develop goals that take in all of these areas, so life goals. So what I would encourage you to do as you start to think about what you want for yourself, what you want for the people around you, what you want for your life in the future, that you have a look at these areas of your life and just consider, is there one of these areas where you're maybe less satisfied than the others? And if you feel less satisfied, then maybe that's an area for you to start working on right now. So knowing what you want in a particular area of your life, and then we can get really specific. I'd like to talk to you a moment about empowerment. And this is a very important concept. In life, we can either be at cause or we can be at effect. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, being at effect is when we have lots and lots of reasons and indeed lots and lots of excuses as to why our life isn't how we actually want it. Reasons and excuses of why we didn't get what we wanted, why all those dreams that we had as children didn't come to fruition, and why we haven't got our life right now exactly as we want it. And so we come up with reasons. And what we're doing when we take that responsibility from inside ourselves and we put it outside ourselves into the world, we actually give the control of our life, all those choices, all that personal power to other people. So if everybody else and everything else is responsible for why your life is like it is, then you've given them your personal power. You've given away your empowerment. I'm sure you've heard people talk in this way many times. They'll say things like, well, I haven't got what I want in my life because of. And then they'll give you a thing or a person. because of my spouse, because I had children, because of my employer, because of the government, because of the state of the economy, because we're in crisis. You'll hear all of these different statements. And when people are putting that responsibility for your own life outside of yourself, then you give away your personal power and you become powerless to actually change your life and begin to get what you want. So, what can we do about that? What we need to do is change to the cause side of life. This is where we get results. So if we move all the responsibility for why our lives are like they are right now back into ourselves, bring it inside, then we take all of our personal power back. And suddenly we have choices. And we are empowered to enable ourselves to get the life we want to have. Because you know what? Everybody deserves it. You all deserve the life that you want to live. And the only way that you can realize that empowerment is to take the responsibility for why your life is like it is back into yourself. Now, many people say, well, I can't really control what goes on in the world around me. I can't control the government. I can't control the actions of other people. And that's very true. The meaning of being a cause is taking responsibility and generating choice for the way that you respond to those actions of other people and what happens in your environment. You have choice of how you respond. And this is what we mean by being a cause. It's about taking responsibility for your own results. And don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about blame. I'm not talking about berating yourself, blaming yourself, punishing yourself, or feeling any sort of guilt for how your life is at the moment. Absolutely not. It's about taking responsibility for your actions and your reactions so that you can create your results and you can take your life in the direction that you want it. So by moving yourself from effect to cause, you can start to generate your results and therefore become really empowered. So I want to ask you, just consider this for a moment. Which side of that little equation, cause and effect, are you on right now? And I guess some of you might say, well, I'm somewhere in the middle. Sometimes I'm at effect and sometimes I'm at cause. And that's absolutely true. Cause and effect can be highly contextual. So you might be fully at cause for your career and at effect for your home life, or vice versa. And how you feel about being at cause and effect could change even during the day. So the challenge I'm going to put forward to you is to really consider where you are in this equation. Are you taking responsibility for your results, or are you blaming other people or other things for how your life is playing out at the moment? And if you feel that you are at effect, I want you to think about what is it that you're believing about yourself or about the world that is holding you in that effect position. Later on in the webinar series, we're going to look in detail at beliefs and how we can remove limiting beliefs. So for now, I'd like you just to consider, which side are you on, cause or effect? Now, if you're not 100% at cause, it can cause you some difficulties in moving towards your future goals. So let's say you want to move from here towards your goal. Let's imagine you're the pilot of an aircraft. Just imagine for a moment when that aircraft, the computer on the aircraft, is setting its course and something happens, a glitch, and the direction of travel is just 1% away from where it should be. Where do you think that plane would end up? Well, that's right, it'd end up miles away from its intended destination. And the same's true when we set goals. If you're not 100% at course and not 100% invested in and committed to your goal, and 100% certain that that goal can be achieved, then you're going to throw yourself off course. And you could end up with achieving a goal or not achieving a goal that's completely different to the one you originally set out to achieve. So being at course 100% can really enable you in an empowering way to reach your goals. Now, you might be sitting, listening and looking at the slide pack and thinking, actually, I don't really know what I want. I don't know what my goals are. Or you might be listening and thinking, yeah, I know exactly what I want in my life. I know which goals areas I want to work on, and I know exactly how I want to get there. So let's think about if you're not sure, you don't know. And many people really haven't thought about what they would really like in their future if they were empowered sufficiently enough to get it. What goal would they set themselves? What fabulous outcomes would you write down? What would it be? So to enable you to start to think about that, I have a set of questions that you can begin to think about. And when you begin to think in this way, it'll allow you to begin to develop goals, to develop thinking for your future. What is it that you really want in your life? What is it that you really want your future to look, sound, and feel like? So let's have a look at the goal creation question set. So the first thing you need to do is think about either one of the goal areas in your life or your life as a holistic element. And ask yourself, what is it in my life right now that I'd really like to change? What are the challenges right now? What are the problems? What would you like to change? Now, once you've identified the elements that you'd really like to change, the thing to do next is to think about negating those things. So we ask ourselves, what do we want to change? And then, what do you want to stop or avoid? Now, this is a very easy way of starting to develop your goal. Because usually, when I ask people, well, what do you want for your future? They find it really easy to tell me what they don't want, and less easy to tell me what they do want. So think about, what is it that you no longer want in your life? What is it that you want to stop? And make a list. Make a list of all the things that you want to stop, all the things that you don't want to do anymore, all the things that you don't want in your life anymore. And once you've made a nice list of the things that you don't want in your life anymore, then go ahead and identify the polarity of that problem state. So all of those things that you don't want, what's the opposite? So begin to develop the list and start to write, well, if I don't want this element in my life, then what's the opposite of that? And by looking at those polar opposites, you're going to start to develop what you want to move towards in your life rather than what you want to move away from. So we start to build up a picture of what your future could sound and feel like and what it's going to look like when you move forward into the things that are opposite to the things you don't want in your life. We need to do a little bit more work from there. So we think about what we desire with an external reference. So who else do you know that already has or has created for themselves some of the elements of what you want in their life. Consider that person. How did they do it? What does it look like for them? What do they sound like? How do you imagine they feel? What resources do you think they needed to get to that point? Now, clearly, this point can be problematic because it's possible that if we start comparing ourselves to other people, then we set up unrealistic expectations. So we need to move on to the next stage. What are the characters of the person who can do that thing really well or has that thing in their life? What are the characteristics? What would you like to manifest that they already do? Think about how they behave. Think about how they hold themselves, how they dress, the hours they work. Think about how they sound when they speak. Think about how they express their emotional content. And again, looking at this in a non-judgmental way and without setting up unrealistic expectations of yourself. Once we've done that, we can start to think about creating a generative outcome. So ask yourself, what qualities associated with what you desire in the future do you already have, or that you would like to have more of? So start to think about the internal resources that you already have and those that you can begin to develop. How do you go about developing more characteristics? How do you go about developing your internal resources? Well, maybe you want to engage in some coaching to help you develop. Or maybe you want to take a training to get some new learning. So, for example, you could come to our face-to-face NLP practitioner coach training and begin to develop your internal resources so you have everything you need. And then finally, acting as if. What do I mean by that? Well, if you could create a picture with sounds and feelings and smells and tastes in your mind, like you had already reached your goal, what would you be doing? What would you be doing more of? So just think about that now. Create a picture in your mind of your goals. What does your future look like? What smells are around? What tastes are around? How wonderful does it feel? What can you hear? What are you saying to yourself in your mind? What's your environment look like? What can you see around you? And just do that now and see how wonderful it feels. And once you've associated into that, then you know what you want from your future. So as you can see, it's important that when you go through the goal creation question set, that you go through it one stage at a time and that you fulfill all of the stages. Because each stage is problematic for you if you take them in isolation. So go through the set of questions one after the other. Now, once you know exactly what it is that you want in your life, I really recommend that you commit it to paper. Write down your goal. Because a goal that's in your head is really just still a dream. So when we work with goals in NLP, we write them down in a very, very specific way. We call this the keys to achievable outcomes. Now, anybody who's worked in the corporate world at any point has probably heard of writing goals in a SMART way. Well-formed goals take SMART to the next level. And it's much more specific. So in NLP terms, we write goals in this very specific way. I really do recommend that you actually physically write the goal, pen and paper, because it gives you some sort of a muscle memory that really begins to bring that goal to life. And read it every day. So when you're beginning to write your goal, it's important that you state it in the positive. So ask yourself the question, what specifically do I want? So your goal isn't going to contain any of the things that you don't want. It's only going to contain what you do want. And be very, very specific about it. Now, when we're writing goals in NLP, we write them a little bit differently because we write them as if we already have them. And there's a very good reason for that. Because blending NLP and timeline therapy techniques, we can put that goal into your future timeline. So your goal is going to sit in a point in your future. So it has to be written as if it's actually occurring at that point in the future. So a goal written today might begin, it's the 31st of December 2017. And this is what my world looks like. And then you describe what it looks like. So you describe the goal as if you're present in the very day that you've achieved it. And later on in the webinar series, if you go ahead and write your goal as a task after this webinar, together in a future series, we'll put it into your future timeline so that as long as you take action, you'll get it. It's important that you specify your outcome and you do that really, really specifically. Ask yourself, what will you see, hear, feel, smell, taste, be saying to yourself when you've got your goal? And describe it in detail. Use sensory language. It's also important that you specify your evidence procedure. How will you know when you've got your goal? This is really, really important. If you don't have an evidence procedure, you might achieve your goal and actually miss the fact that you've achieved it. So make sure that within your writing of your goal, you write your evidence procedure. This is how I know I've got my goal. So I have my dream house, or I have my dream job. And I know that I've got that dream job because maybe, just as an example, my paycheck has this amount of money written on the bottom of it. So be very specific about your evidence procedure. You need to make sure that your goal is congruently desirable. Ask yourself, what will this outcome get for you or allow you to do? What will the outcome get for you or allow you to do? And make sure you're congruent with those outcomes. Ask yourself, is your goal self-initiated and self-maintained? It's important that you can initiate your goal on your own and that you can maintain the journey towards that goal on your own. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that other people can't be involved in your goal, because I'm sure they will be. Partners, family, friends, of course they will. But it's really important that your goal doesn't rely on somebody else taking an action. Because if they don't take that action, maybe their goals of their own are not completely aligned with yours, then your goal isn't going to manifest in the future. So please make sure that it's self-initiated and self-maintained. Think about the context of your goal and make sure it's appropriately contextualized. Ask yourself, where, when, how, and with whom do I want this goal? Make sure the context is clear. And then consider what resources you're going to need in order to get your goal. And resources can be a whole number of things. It doesn't necessarily just mean financial resources. It might mean assets. It might mean having connections with people. It might mean doing some new learning, taking a training or some coaching. What resources do you need? And to help you think about that, think about, have you ever had or done this sort of thing before? What resources did you need to get there? Do you know anyone else that has? Maybe you could model them, ask them what resources they needed. Or act as if you already have it and think backwards. So what did I need to get here? And then ask yourself, is my goal ecological? And in NLP terms, by ecological, we mean a study of consequences. So if you get your goal, what will that mean for the people closest to you, your family? Or what will it mean to your extended family? Or what will it mean to your friends? What will it mean to your business? What will it mean to your community? What will it mean to your region? If it's a really big goal, what will it mean to your country? Or maybe even the world? Ask yourself, for what purpose do you want this goal? And what will you gain or lose if you have it? So you develop your thinking this way, and then you can write down your goal. So as I mentioned, once you have a really nice, well-formed goal, then you can put that goal into your future timeline. And in our 5th webinar, the very final one, we will do this together. So you have a few weeks to write your goal and get it really well-formed. And we do that by making an internal representation of our goal and then stepping into it and adjusting the properties of that picture, the colour, the sounds, the feelings, so that it's really, really compelling. And then we can go ahead and put it into our future. So imagining this is our timeline. We have now, our past and our future. We're going to imagine we float up above that line, and we're going to float out into the future, and we're going to place that goal into our future timeline. And as long as you take action, you're going to get it. Now, that's exciting, isn't it? So stick with me through all of our webinars, and we'll put your goal into your timeline in the future. And then you can come back to know. Obviously, obstacles are going to get in your way because life happens. So think about how you're going to get from here to your goal in a way that gets around the obstacles that life will throw at you. Think of obstacles as the universe just testing you out. How much do you really want this goal? So think of ways to go over, under, through all of those obstacles that stand in your way. So there we are. We've talked about goal setting in your future. So we have a couple of minutes remaining for any questions. Would anybody like to ask a question? You can unmute yourself by clicking on the little microphone, or you can just type in the chat. Okay, no questions today. Okay, so as with last time, a little bit of a gift for you today. So today's gift is a little bit different. I have 3 places available on our NLP Coach Practitioner Training in March, right here at the Quest for Success Training and Coaching Centre. And for the first 3 people after the webinar that get in touch, I'm offering that with an extra £200 discount. So you'll get the early booking price minus another £200. So take advantage of that right now. Get at calls, do your learning, get your extra resources so that you can create the future that you want to create. So once again, thanks really much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go off now and get everything ready for the day 3 of our Master Coach Trainer series. It's Hypnosis Day today, so everybody's very excited about a lot of lovely relaxation. So please have a lovely day, and webinar 3 will be aired next Tuesday, and I hope you'll join me. So goodbye for now. Have a lovely week.